everyone. Welcome back to From the Earth to the Moon podcast. I'm Elton. This is Andy.
Hello there.
And we have got to cover, apparently, Apollo 16 mission, but it's really not called that. It's called Part 11 at the Original Wives Club.
Yeah, it's a strange one, this, isn't it?
Well, Apollo 16 happened somewhere in there.
There's at least 2 shots of Apollo 16 and some nice use of archive footage, which is good.
Oh, okay, right. You're going to have to point out the archive stuff later on then.
Oh, it was all the stuff on Moon, but yes.
Oh, yeah, that's also... Oh, yeah, I got all that, yeah, that's fine. But apart from that, where do we go with this one? I'm confused with this episode.
I, too, am confused with this episode, and I will tell you what my confusion is here.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if I dislike this episode or if I dislike the period and attitude that are being portrayed.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, we're coming from a 2018 standpoint on this as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that coming out of this because I'm watching a lot of this and a lot of it's pretty cringeworthy in places. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it you're just thinking, really? In this year? And then you remember, but wait, no, it's not this year. It's 1963.
Yeah. And it was recorded at least 20 years ago.
Well, I mean, this was filmed in 98, sorry. 98 this was. And a little bit of trivia for you. This is directed by Sally Field, who most of you will probably remember from Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right, interesting.
So it's a female director. I think this is the only female director of the series as well. I will just double check that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is. And again, for the most part, I think the performances are good. There's a couple of bits which I wouldn't touch on, which I think were really good, although they should have been in other episodes.
Yeah.
But this episode as a whole really feels to me more like a mismatch of we had all these extra bits that we'd filmed, seemed a shame to waste them. We wanted to tell this story, but couldn't really fit it in anywhere else. And yeah, it almost feels like the framing device around Apollo 16 was a waste. You know, they had no interest in telling that story, which I think is a disappointment because Apollo 16 is one of those ones where I don't know any kind of interesting background trivia like I knew with Apollo 15. But it's things like Ken Mattingly, who we know from Apollo 13, missed out on that one, and he finally gets to make it into space.
Yep.
You've got John Young as the commander and Ken Mattingly, and both of those guys went on to do parts of the shuttle missions. In fact, I think John Young flew the first shuttle mission.
Oh, okay.
And there's just lots of other little bits and pieces there that I just feel, in the same way Apollo 10. I mean, I say what Apollo 10 and its crew had more development in this episode than the Apollo 10 had in the show proper.
Yeah.
Because we talk a little bit about Thomas Stafford and stuff, who was the commander of 10. But yeah, it just feels a bit weird. It was like we have the opening shot with Apollo 16 and Ken's lost his wedding ring.
Yeah.
And then we get some real quick archive footage from Apollo 16. And again, it's a shame because by now they've really gotten the cameras and all that sorted. So the footage they have from them is really good.
It's bloody good, isn't it?
Like shot, done. And then we get another final shot at the end where they manage to grab the ring before it flies out of the open hatch.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering what he was doing at that point outside, they were actually collecting the cassettes for the cameras, which were mounted exterior to the service module, so they could bring that footage of like dockings and things like that home with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really weird kind of out of place bit part episode. I mean, it's all framed around this. Firstly it's framed around Apollo 16, but then it's framed around this fashion show, this pageant thing, which is
it's more framed around that, isn't it? Around the actual catwalk itself.
It's framed around that, but it's just so cringy.
Yeah. See, I think there is definitely a story to be told here. It needs to be told. This is as important as anything else going on. maybe that's from my view from a 2018. I don't know. You know, it, like you say, that it does seem like there are leftover bits that they needed to make an episode, and they couldn't really work. Maybe there wasn't enough material and drama around 16 to actually build a story up from. And they
I can't accept that's the case, though, because again, there's so much else you could do around the missions and stuff. I mean, we saw with 15. I mean, hell, you could have done for 15 talking about the controversies we had there, and instead use, because 16 did the same sort of geological training that 15 did.
Yep.
So, you know, there was other things you could do. There's lots of stories. You know, you could have told a story about what happens, you know, someone like Charlie Duke, and it's his only space flight, and maybe talk about, you know, coming back from that and, you know, things like that. There's lots of things they could have told it. I personally feel that by doing this dedicated episode in the way they did, they kind of lessened it a little bit, because I think a lot of people would probably just switch off mentally more than anything else and wouldn't appreciate it. I mean, I think this is especially true with the Borman stuff. Mm-hmm. Why wasn't that in the Apollo 8 episode? Instead of that soppy bloody MTV montagey bollocks that we had for the first half of that? Because I'll tell you what, that made her a much more sympathetic character than the episode portrayed her as. And that bit at the end with going into rehab and that kind of moment where he's going, you know, Frank Borman, the tough mission commander, Frank Borman, the guy, you know, who was commander of Apollo 8 around the moon and everything like this. It humanizes him so much because, again, you know, he kind of doesn't really know what to do. Yeah. He's out of his element. And it's things like, you know, you get that little bit at the end, how they're still together and, you know, working, you know, as a strong couple when a lot of the others had divorced. If that had been in the Apollo 8 episode, that Apollo 8 episode would have been a lot better. Yeah. In my opinion, a lot better. It makes some of those, because you remember we were saying her suddenly deciding that she was going to write the letter because she was convinced he was going to die and all that, just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere. Well, if she's got like an alcohol dependency problem and is suffering from depression and things like that, that makes a lot more sense.
Of course it does.
So it's like, well, why wasn't that in that episode? I mean, and equally so, things like, you know, having the other wives go to kind of intercept the after being an accident. So with Marilyn C. after her husband was killed in a T-38 crash, or
and Armstrong's
Charlie.
wife.
Yeah, just kind of doing that. I mean, that sort of stuff I think would be so much more. I mean, we actually saw Armstrong's wife turning up in the Apollo 1 episode. That was the actual footage.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's like, that should have been in that episode, not in this. And because we'd seen those elements throughout, I do feel that this was a case of they just had extra footage, and it was more a case of filming stuff around that to kind of pad out a full episode. It's also, we've seen this story done a lot better in Apollo 13 with Marilyn Lovett. We've seen astronauts' wives, and I don't think you can improve on what we see in that. In that way, she's, you know, you can't put the transmitter on the lawn. If you have a problem with it, take it up with my husband. He's home on Friday. It's like that kind of just says everything you need to know about that there. So this whole episode just feels, like I said, it's more a collection of scenes and little vignettes than a cohesive whole. And I just feel that other episodes would have been much better having these bits dropped into them than what we got here.
Yeah, I feel they deserve, the wives themselves deserve a lot more than this kind of hashed up episode. I don't think this is worse than the episode a couple of times ago.
Apollo 13 one?
Yeah, the Apollo 13 one. No, I don't think it's worse than that. But
no, I don't think it's worse than that.
I do believe that the wives deserve a lot more than what they've got here. It makes them seem as if all they do is sit around talking about their husbands and having lunch. And now that may be so in the 60s/70s. I'm not too sure because I wasn't living around that sort of time, so I wouldn't know. But it kind of portrays the simple life that, oh, look, they've got plenty of time to do that. And by the way, they're struggling with the stuff that the husbands aren't seeing. And I feel like they're shortchanged in this, and they deserve so much more. And I don't know. It worries me sometimes. It really does. This sort of thing. It worries me that we've come from that sort of time as well. And, going behind every great man is a great woman, etc. Everyone, that's the famous saying that people come out with. But they did so much more as well. They had to. It's like being a military. Well, it is being a military wife, but instead of the husbands going off on deployment, they're going to space.
Well, they even say that in the episode. It's all the stress of being wife of a test pilot tenfold.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's a line that it's near the beginning when we're all kind of getting together and getting to know each other. And I think you have one of the Mercury 7 wives of Air. I'm not sure which one. And she basically says, NASA views us as the perfect accessory. And it's just like, oh, that's... We've come a long way from the 60s. We still have a long way to go, but we have come a long way from the 60s. But even in the 60s, people were thinking, we've come a long way since the 30s.
Yes.
And that's just... it's a journey. We keep going, and hopefully as a species we get better and better and better. People aren't making it easy, I'll tell you that, but we're trying to. But it's when you look back at something like this and some of these moments, and that's what I come back to say before. I'm not entirely sure if what I dislike in this episode is the episode itself, or it's that period and attitudes that they are portraying.
Yeah. So what were some of the bits that you really caught your eye that you really, really enjoyed from this then?
Well, like I said, the stuff with Frank Borman and his wife, and forgive me for not knowing her name off the top of my head, I will do what I do best, and I will Google it.
Yep.
But like I said, I remember definitely saying at the time of the Apollo 8 one how I didn't enjoy Susan Borman. There you go. I really didn't enjoy her portrayal in that episode, how it kind of seemed very schizophrenic, how 1 minute she's all very supportive and, happy to help. And the next minute she's writing up effectively her will and testament, and convinced that he's going to die. And it just seemed very jarring. And the stuff with her when, she's sitting in the chair filling out the quiz, do you have a drinking problem? And she starts to realize she does. That was interesting. That was good. And that informed that character. I'm sure most of this is based in grounded in reality and everything. I don't think they're going to make creative liberties with stuff like that. And that was really good. And then it's like that moment at the end when, like I said, there's that very vulnerable moment when she's going into rehab and Frank Borman. And again, Frank Borman, the astronaut, the commander of, what was it? He was Gemini 7, commander of Apollo 8. He had 20 days in space. All told, and he doesn't know what to say. Now, think back to when he was, again, Apollo 1, he's the take charge guy. He's the, get in there and do stuff and, get it all done. Took no nonsense. I want these changes made and everything. And that's fine. And to see him vulnerable and not knowing what to do or how to, he's completely out of his element. I really liked that. That was really cool. That was a very human moment. And it was very touching at the end when you see that they stayed together throughout. And that was great. I like bits with, what's her name? Marilyn Lovell and Jim.
Yep.
The bit I kind of liked, though, was the bit at the end in the house when she's trying to explain that I was,
Oh, the tonsils.
The tonsils thing and everything like that, which is kind of interesting. But again, I just think that we got a much better realization of Marilyn Lovell in Apollo 13. And I don't think there was really much you could add to that.
Yeah, I see. I don't know if that's liberties with the way that they're writing things, but would Jim really not know about his kids having their tonsils out? Now, granted, she did turn around and say, well, we just whooped them out just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a kind of, but, it's still, your kids are going in for operations and having tonsils. are you telling me that there's no way just to let him know? But then again, at the very beginning of the episode, we're told, well, don't. Your job is to make his life as smooth as possible, and any disruption in that could knock him down on his flight rotation. It could be knock him out of the flight rotation, and you mustn't upset that. And so she kind of abides to that, doesn't she? And so, hiding that sort of stuff from him. Well, she explained it. There were certain things that he had to know and certain things that she had to keep from him to keep everything running smoothly. Yeah,
she just had, she had to make the choice, and it's I don't think it's anything any of us will ever be in that sort of position to have to make that decision, fortunately.
Yeah.
I also quite liked the discussion about, I'd rather have been widowed. Not because I think it's a good attitude to have, but it's an interesting discussion they were having, because in that sense of when you divorce, the man is in the right at that time. Doesn't matter the circumstances or anything like that. But the view of it is if they divorce, then they have to move out, they have to go away, they lose contact with their friends and their lives and everything there. And
the guys are heroes, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. They're heroes. They're astronauts. They want wholesome families and stuff like this. And if it's divorced, it's because the woman's in the wrong or something like that. It was quite telling how many of them were divorced by the end of it.
Yeah, that was sad.
It was sad. But yeah, it felt very. The connecting tissue in this episode felt very wafer thin. It was like not very substantial. It's really just a case of they had maybe 3 good vignettes that maybe had dropped out of other episodes, and then they just filmed some other stuff around it to pad it out a little bit. It just didn't feel quite like a cohesive whole. And I do just feel these would have been much better served in the episodes related to their actual Apollo missions. I know it's not always the case. There's a limited amount of time and there's other stuff needed to get out. But certainly the Apollo 8 one, because that was so bad.
So, okay, what about the Patty White, or Pat White, and all of her story? Because she was portrayed as very nervous all the way through this, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And it's when you hear that she's the wife of Ed White, and you're thinking, this is not going to end well. We all know exactly how this is going to end. And you're kind of waiting for them to build up to that moment. And the time with the headset, and they're talking on the headset, she's so nervous on that. And yet, when you turn around and said, they are kind of decoration, they are the accessory. And the way that they're ushered into that control room, mission control, and sit down and put the headsets on, there's all eyes on these ladies, isn't there? And it is a really interesting story. I just wish there was a little bit more on this, actually. I'm not saying I want because I think there is a ABC program called the Astronauts Wives Club, I think it is. So there is an actual story, not on these ladies, but I think from the Gemini and Mercury missions, I think it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was an interesting story. I mean, the Apollo 1 episode was chock full of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that would have been much better served in that episode, or maybe right after the episode. I mean, I think maybe the problem here is because of the format they've adopted, where each episode relates to a different mission. The logical place to put, maybe it would have been better if instead of that, the Apollo program in its entirety was kind of done sequentially, and things like this could have dropped in around then. And we were saying as well, like the Apollo 15, some of that earlier training stuff could have come in at those moments, and maybe that's the solution. Yeah. I don't think there is a ideal solution. I just think, again, we're in a situation where we're all agreed this is a story worth telling that needs to be told. I just don't think they did the best job telling the story that they could have done.
Yeah, well, okay. throughout the whole series, we've been turning around and saying, well, look, they've been padding out here, there, and everywhere. I think there's only 2 episodes where we really have turned around and said, no, that's fine, which was Spider and the first episode about Apollo 1.
That was the second episode, so I take your point.
Okay, yeah. the second episode. And apart from them, maybe we could have fitted more of the wives' lives during each and every episode and gone on this journey with them. Maybe from their point of view as well.
You know where this would have been better? The Apollo 13 episode, and showing how the other wives could have been related to how it could have been them and their stories there. How
they gathered around.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Again, though, mate, the reason they might have shied away from doing that is we kind of saw that in the film. So, but yeah, it just feels like an afterthought more than anything else.
Yeah.
And rather than it feels like we're doing them a disservice because it's more that sense of, oh shit, yeah, we need to do this. Shit, we'll just throw it into this episode here.
Doesn't that swear on the Apollo 13 episode though, where the television guy dropped the F-bomb on that episode? Doesn't that feel so out of place now?
Yeah,
that feels so weird. I just don't understand why that was there. I get that people were frustrated, but it doesn't fit anywhere. It doesn't fit at all.
No, I mean, on the whole, this series has maintained a pretty high level of consistency. It's been consistently good and entertaining. And even this episode, I think, is far from the worst. I mean, I think this is better than the Apollo 13 one. I'd even go as far as to say it's probably better than the Apollo 8 one, in my opinion, because I really don't like the Apollo 8 episode.
Right.
But even then, that's more because of a couple of good ones they have. The Pat White and the Susan Borman ones are really good.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is just really a bit wishy-washy and just, yeah. And I really hate that framing device of a pageant.
Well,
it's
okay.
Just
about that then. About that. Let's talk about that. Why are they using that?
Well, I mean, I could definitely see it as something they probably would have done. NASA would have done that. Yes. In the 1960s, totally could see that.
Yeah.
And I think, in one sense, it's kind of good that you kind of get a little sense of each of their personalities just from a short, what they're wearing and how they're walking up that catwalk.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy announcing them, I mean, today he sounds like he belongs in a bloody strip club,
Yeah.
And it's just painful to listen to.
I can't work out whether it's really well done that you have the next subject and the wives in subjects spoken about on the catwalk, and then it's their story. Whether that's really good storytelling or really cheesy storytelling.
Yeah.
It kind of fits into both categories, I feel.
I mean, the other thing that's really weird as well, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I might have missed this, but none of the Apollo 16 wives are in this.
No, this was the original 9 wives, wasn't it?
It's not the original 9, but it's the new 9.
Sorry, yeah, the new 9. Sorry.
But yeah, so again, the whole Ken Mattingly's talking about how he's just gotten married. And, why aren't we hearing that story? Because if you want to tell the story of NASA wives and stuff in general, a new wife of an astronaut coming to terms, being introduced to this kind of sorority, and why aren't we telling that story there, which then directly links into Apollo 16? Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah, you'd have a reason for the ring to be floating around and why he doesn't want to lose it. Obviously, he doesn't want to lose it anyway, but you'd have a bit of weight behind that.
I'm just thinking, any of the new John Young, no, none of the John Young's the only one of those ones who was part of the new 9,
right?
Basically, so again, apart from him, and again, I don't think his wife really features in the episode. At least not in like a way that sticks in my mind going, oh yeah, there was that story.
No, she's not. No. I think that's half the problem as well, because you kind of, the names are skirted over.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, we don't really have any connection with these people for the vast majority of them. That first one where you had, right, you have to excuse me because I'm blanking on names, but was it Jim Lovell's wife was sent over to another wife when the plane crashed?
Marilyn C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had her turning up because she had to be the wife there. She was in full knowledge of the information. And yet I'm sure NASA didn't want her to let her know or pass on the information. She wanted it to come officially.
You see, I find that hard to believe.
I don't know. I believe that, definitely.
The whole going over and chatting and making plans, knowing full well that her husband's dead. Yeah,
that's grim, isn't it?
It's very grim, and I just don't. Again, a lot of what I know about Marilyn Lovell is shaped by what we see in Apollo 13, and also, what we see later on and everything. But I can think about it when Jan Armstrong goes to see what's her name? Ed White's wife, Pat White.
Yeah.
Instantly, she isn't there chatting and making, drinking some mimosas while making plans for the holiday, knowing that her husband's dead. She's there to comfort her and be with her.
Yeah, you're waiting for that black car to roll up on your driveway, aren't you?
But it's the way I do find that a bit difficult to buy. I could be wrong. It could have happened just like that, but that doesn't ring true to me. It doesn't ring true to the character I've come to know in various forms.
It reminded me of.
I could see her going. Yeah.
It reminded me of. What was it? There was a war movie where the letters would be delivered by a taxi driver, and he wouldn't be established enough to actually pass the message on that your son or your husband or whatever had died in the war. And so all the emails, bloody hell, all the telegrams / letters would be delivered to a certain lady's house. And then they would, as a collective, go over to that wife and console. I'm blanking on the actual film though, but I'm surprised that they didn't adopt that. Seeing it would have been like a military exercise as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure there would have been some procedures in place, but yeah, it's not her being there that I take issue with. I think that would absolutely happen.
Mm.
It's more that you're making plans and chatting away and drinking and, having fun with that knowledge.
Oh, no, I totally believe that because, as you said, they are the perfect accessory. And so they go over, they have full knowledge of what is just about to happen, and yet they're there so the wife who's going to be receiving the bad news has someone to turn to. And I totally believe that that's how it would be orchestrated.
Yeah, but I think if they later found out that they knew beforehand...
Yeah, it'd be like, okay. Well, it would work on the first wife. And maybe the second wife.
But that's the thing. If you're Marilyn... So, yeah, you're Marilyn Lovell.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden one of the other wives randomly shows up at your house.
Yeah, what the fuck has happened?
Hey, that's every time they come around, what the fuck has happened? Yeah. It's like every time they pop out and say, hey, hello, get a cup of sugar. Who's dead?
Oh, mate, yeah, but you could play so many awesome tricks though, couldn't you?
Oh, I don't think any of those tricks would be awesome.
No, but, well, okay, right, you don't turn up unless I fucking invite you. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, we ran out of salt. Nobody runs out of salt. What you doing here? Yeah, okay, yeah. No, yeah, that would be grim. Yeah, don't do that, kids. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't really have a huge amount else to say about this episode, really. It's just... I think a worthy attempt, but just let down.
It falls short, doesn't it?
It does.
By a long, long way. And I was going through I think the last episode we went through the IMDb ratings on this, right? I'm going to go through them now. Because I've been rating them as I've been going through this as well.
Okay.
And yeah, this one is rated at 5.8 on IMDb. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the same as We Interrupt This Program, which was 5.8. Now, I rated that one a 3.
That's a very generous 3 there.
Yeah, I've rated this one a 5. And I think that's the second lowest one. I don't think it is the second lowest one. I don't think it's a bad episode per se. It does have some connection. Well, it does have connection with the missions themselves. I feel it doesn't do justice to Apollo 16 though. It is like Apollo 10 though, isn't it? You know, you get 30 seconds of Apollo 10 and that's it. You know, someone skirting across the moon's surface. You're like, oh, okay. That was the mission then, was it? Right, okay. We clearly didn't need to see that.
Yep.
But once again, it is a story that needs to be told. I don't think this was the way to do it though.
Yeah, I think it's a story they should have been telling alongside the main narrative. I know I keep harking on about it, but while, you know, with things like the Apollo 1 episode, I can understand there's a lot else in that episode to get in there. There ain't no excuse for Apollo 8. You could have done without that 30-minute bloody fucking montage.
Yeah, that's always going to be there, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. So, also because, again, it's not just that, it's the fact that it actually informs characters in that episode. And it's like, well, why wasn't this in there?
Yeah. It's all black and white as well, wasn't it? Or mostly black and white.
I started all that Vietnam footage and everything. And,
oh, God, yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it. It just doesn't... I'm hoping this series isn't going off on a whimper now.
I remember really enjoying the last episode.
Yeah.
It's not the best, but it is a good episode. I remember it being that way. But again, we will find out soon if history has altered my memory. I hope not.
Good stuff. Okay, what have you anything else to share on this episode, or shall we leave it there?
All I'll add again is I just think it's a shame that Apollo 16 kind of got the short shrift again. I don't know a huge amount about the mission. You know, that's on me. I should go and look it up and everything like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's the penultimate one. Things like this is effectively the Apollo 13 backup crew. So again, there's a connection there. You know, when they were saying about Charlie Duke had the measles.
Yep.
Here we meet Charlie Duke and everything. Ken Mattingly, originally going to be the command module pilot for Apollo 13. He finally gets his chance to go into space there. And I think there's stuff to be said there that would have been kind of interesting to look at. Also, at this point, they knew there were going to be no more missions.
Yes.
So the backup crew for here knew they would not go to the moon. So the backup crew was Fred Hayes, again from Apollo 13, and Stuart Roosa and Edgar Mitchell, who had been on Apollo 14, because the view was they didn't have to worry about if they didn't make it, effectively. I mean, okay, it's a shame for Fred Hayes, but still, it was certainly the view that you've been there, you've done that. If you don't make it, no harm, no foul, effectively.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a shame things are winding up a little bit now, you know?
Yeah.
You just kind of feel that.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
I'll give you a little bit of detail on the Apollo 16.
Yeah.
There were 3 surface EVAs at a total of 20 hours. The first one was 7 hours. The second one was 7 hours, and the third one was about 5 hours-ish.
Cool.
And what did they bring back? The landing site. Where was the landing site?
With the Cars Highlands?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's all the real detail, really. It's just a bog standard mission, again. But there is loads and loads of stock footage all over the place, all over YouTube, or everywhere, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And, the Flickr site. Charlie Duke left a photo of his family on the moon. So, another little souvenir there.
Yeah, that would have been nice to see.
Lots of big rocks on the landing site, just looking on the Wikipedia, which is kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, a bit more terrain as well, not very flat either, which is nice to see.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this is it. 16, only one more mission.
Yep. And then that's it. We're done. We won't be visiting ever again.
Oh, yeah, things keep going how it is. I will just mention again, and this only really applies to people who are listening to this relatively now and in the UK. The documentary film The Last Man on the Moon is airing on the 16th of May on BBC4.
Yep.
I think it's also on Netflix. If you get a chance, you should definitely check it out because it's a really, really good little documentary film.
Yeah, I checked it out a little while ago on Netflix. Yeah, definitely worth watching.
Yes. Of course, this is useless to all of you in the future who are listening to this. And in which case, maybe we've actually gone back to the moon and he no longer is the last man on the moon, which would be great. But if that's not the case, you can find it online. It's on Netflix, well, at least as of recording, and it's on the internet. You know how to find it.
Yeah, exactly. There are ways and means, aren't there?
Oh, yes.
If you are listening to this from, 2045, I suppose, what the hell are you listening to this for? Christ. Maybe, someone has landed on the moon again. I don't know.
Maybe we finally got our 2 billion on the Patreon and we're recording it.
Oh, that would be a follow-up episode to remember, wouldn't it? That would be the one.
With the microphones outside the helmets.
Man, it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Right, okay, I think we should wrap it up there because, otherwise we're just in danger of just waffling for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, right. So, have you got anything to plug, my good friend?
Just the usual stuff. You can find me and your good self, for the most part, on rogue2media.com, where we record so many podcasts. There's the Band of Brothers podcast. There's the Great Derelict. There's Shonky Labs. There's the Grand Prix podcast. There's whatever else we're doing by the time the next one comes along.
Yep.
But yes, go there, listen to podcasts. Great fun.
Excellent, yeah. And please do check out all the links in the show notes. There's a ton more podcasts to check out as well, along with Jim Moon, Hypnogoria, and the Black Dog podcast as well. So please pop along to the site, which is rogue2media.com, and you can find all the links in the show notes over there. And until next time, thank you very much for joining me, Andy.
Before you do that,
okay.
Two more things you've got to do. There's two things you've got to do.
Yeah, okay, go on.
You've got to plug your Patreon.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
If I don't know what the web address is, but you've got to go to Patreon and chuck us a buck or, throw us some shekels or whatever. Because if we get to 2 billion a month, we will do an episode on the moon. So that alone should make it worthwhile.
Yep, that's all in the show notes. So,
it is. And if you can't do that, share it with a friend. Go tell someone to listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Share it to a mate. Share it to multiple mates. You see, you should do that because then the more people that listen to it, the more that we can spread our plans to take over the world through the subliminal tones that we've been broadcasting throughout this.
We can buy that volcano, finally.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get a cheap deal off of Elon Musk when he's finished with his.
Good stuff. Okay, right. Well, can I finish this one now?
I think so, yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Right, well, thank you very much for joining me. And until next time for the last episode in From the Earth to the Moon, we'll say goodbye. So, ta-da.
Ta-da.